Sales is just leverage. Sales is just leverage, guys. So if you're watching this video, yet another video on sales, you've probably watched every other sales video on YouTube out there, from Jeremy Miner to Bill Walsh. They've taught you how to use this tactic, this framework. You've been taught how to do logical selling, emotional selling, how to build the world's best sales pitch, and how to kung fu every single last objection completely out of existence so that you never have to hear the words, I need to go and talk to my wife about it, ever again. And at this point, I know what you're thinking. You've just come across me thinking, who is this guy? He's got 2 videos on YouTube. Why does he think he knows better than all those other guys? But I promise you, if you give me the next 10 to 15 minutes of your attention, I'm going to explain to you the fundamental reasoning for why these tactics and frameworks work, and you're going to leave with a completely different mindset and framework for how to improve your own sales process with what it is that you specifically do. So with that said, what do I mean by this? Sales is leverage. Essentially, what it comes down to is sales is just a dance of creating and releasing leverage in a conversation in order to get the most specific outcome that you're looking for. It's just tension and release. I'm going to save the topic of esotericism for another video, but if you have read the Kybalion, which is a book on fundamental principles of the universe, one of the major principles in there is the principle of rhythm. And effectively what this says is that all objects in motion kind of act with a cyclical and kind of like rotational behavior that allows momentum to kind of move and be transferred throughout the universe, right? Maybe that wasn't the best explanation, but I guess to give 2 examples of this is that the tide has to come in before it can go out. The sun has to rise before it can set. If you want to get a more logical scenario, I guess you can look at the stock market as well, right? If you trade the stock market or you invest, investments have to go up before they can come down. Economics have to go up before they can come down. It's all just a cyclical rotational flow of momentum, and essentially sales is no different from that with how we use and apply leverage. So I've got 3 pictures here: picture of some music from an orchestra, picture of some great art, and a picture from a movie as well. And what is it that all these 3 things share in common? It's that they all actually apply great leverage, right? They all know how to use leverage if they're good at these things. Great music has fantastic tension release. Music builds and builds and builds to a pinnacle where it kind of releases like an overflow. That's in all great music. Great art is no different. It's maybe a little bit less obvious, but great art has amazing points of tension and also great points of release and kind of expansion within it. Same with great movie as well, like great movie, great book, great story, whatever it is, anything that contains a story is going to have great tension and release. We start the story off with very little interest, very little tension. We build and build and build tension, and effectively it kind of builds to a pinnacle, like a battle, a fight, or something like that. And then all that tension kind of releases, and we end in the ending of the story. And effectively, what I want to demonstrate is that sales is no different from either of these things, because sales is an art form in a way. Essentially, what an art is just like a delivery of what you've practiced over time. It's a skill, it's your talent, and it's a flow and delivery of those things, right? And that is what great art is. That's how it works if you play music, if you're an actor, a painter, even if you play sports. Sports is in some way artistic, and sales is no different. You've practiced skills over a long period of time, and now you're delivering and demonstrating and flowing those skills. So in order to help us kind of understand this concept at a much deeper level, I wanted to break the rest of this video down into 3 different stages. So firstly, we're going to talk about actually how to identify leverage, because if we can't even identify it, then we're never going to be able to use it, apply it, and actually master it. So that's super important, number 1. And then I want to go on to talk about how to actually create leverage within our conversations and how to use it in a way and create things in a way where we're creating opportunity and creating ins for us to sway the leverage in our favor. Then last but not least, I want to go on to touch on how to sort of control the flow of leverage throughout the conversation and actually how to use it to get the outcome that we want at the end of the day. And there are a few ways we can do that, and also in specific situations I want to touch on as well. So that's what we're going to talk about. So diving into it, I guess identifying leverage. There are really 3 different kinds of leverage that we can use in any situation. We have positive leverage. So positive leverage being you have something that someone else wants that is of value and of scarcity. And so therefore the demand for what you're offering kind of outweighs the number of people who potentially want this, right? The demand for it is higher than the supply for it. So that's positive leverage. Negative leverage being, I guess there is a negative aspect on that person not making a change or not moving forward with something. So they have something to lose by not taking action. So maybe by not going forward with something, they're going to lose money. They're going to lose something of value to them, maybe their house or something, or a possession. Or maybe they're going to end up in a bad situation with their health, or they're going to lose their health in some way. Right? That is framing their current situation as turning into a negative if they do not make a change. That is negative leverage. And the last type of leverage is normative leverage. So this is a little bit different to the other two. This is actually framing their behavior in a way that is inconsistent with their past action or past behaviors in a way that they have done something. So maybe you are trying to get someone to commit to making a change or something, and they say no, and by you looking at their past behaviors and past actions and pointing out inconsistency or hypocrisy with what they do or what they say, that is creating normative leverage. It's closing the gap with who they should be and who they have been in the past and who they are now trying to be and get out of that conversation by being. That is closing the gap with normative leverage. So with that said, like, how does this actually apply to conversations, sales calls? Let's dive into that. Before we even actually arrive at the sales call, there's already an imbalance of leverage on the table, because from the prospect's point of view, they want to come to that call getting two things out of it. They want information on what you're offering, so information on your product or service, and then they want to know what the price is. In the prospect's minds, those are the only two things that actually matter to them, right? Is what is this and what am I going to have to pay for it? If you, in some universe, had a website where you detailed every aspect of your product service and you list the price at the bottom, there would never ever need to be a need for sales calls. No one would ever get on one, because what is that you have no leverage to get them on a call with you? Why would that even be of interest to them? But obviously, in return for that, what we're offering, the information and the price of what we're offering, you want their business, you want their sale, their business, and their money. However, those two things are not of equal value, and this is where that kind of imbalance of leverage comes in. Because as a sales rep, you are actually, and what you have to operate from is a position of abundance, right? Because as a sales rep, there are theoretically unlimited amount of leads and prospects and unlimited amount of money that you can take, right? There are so many people out there with various amounts of money and vast amounts of money that theoretically you can make a sale by talking to any of those guys, right? You have an abundant pool of prospects and leads. And theoretically, if your marketing skills are good, or the business owner's marketing skills are good, you could generate an unlimited amount of leads. And you've got to operate from a place where there is always the better opportunity for me. There's always another person I can speak to. If someone is wasting my time, or if they are not a good fit for what I am proposing to deliver for them, I will just simply go and speak to someone better or more worthy of my time. And obviously, the reflection of that is the prospect. They are coming from a place of scarcity because they've got a problem that needs fixing, right? And problems in this world are way, way more abundant than solutions. Everyone's got a problem. Everyone has some problems to some degree, but not everyone can offer solutions. So solutions are much, much rarer than problems. And that's something you've really got to understand, right? Especially if the solution you're offering is pretty rare. So assuming it's not some sort of commoditized service. So I guess what I mean by that is, if you're just a kind of generic marketing agency, at the end of the day, if someone wants marketing done for them, there are other marketing agents they can go and talk to, especially if what you're offering is not particularly unique. But if your offer is unique in the outcome that it produces for people, or you've got a particular mechanism that produces a certain result for people, then what you're offering is of way, way more value to so many more people than their money is to you. So that's the kind of imbalance of leverage. And I guess on that, a common mistake that a lot of people, I guess, early on in sales will make, right, is that they actually, as a sales rep, start operating from a place of scarcity, because what they do is they're just looking at their commission, the money that they're making. If you're doing that, you are operating from a place of scarcity because you are hyper fixated on one number and letting that control how you operate, how you live your life, and how you perform within sales, right? And that is not what you want to be doing. If you're sitting there right now taking sales calls and you've done 5K in commissions this month, and all you're thinking is, how am I going to get to 7K, 10K? That is what so many people do. But yeah, you're operating from a place of scarcity because you are focusing on an outcome that is going to be inconsistent, right? This is something that people don't necessarily get about performance-based roles, is that the outcome can be inconsistent. And what it is your job to focus on is just to focus on the inputs that you're putting in and keeping that consistent. Because if you have a sales funnel or sales process or sales framework that you use in your calls, if that process works at a certain conversion rate, so maybe your sales scripts and your sales process converts people at like a 25% to 30% conversion rate, which is good, then it should just be your job to keep that process as consistent and repeatable and scalable as possible. And you shouldn't be focused on the outcome, right? You should just be focused on, how can I optimize and refine this process and just keep doing it more effectively. That is kind of what sales is at the end of the day. So that is how you operate from a place of abundance, kind of as a sales rep, is focusing on the inputs that you are doing, not the outputs, and focusing on that number on the wall over there. So onto creating leverage. How do we actually create leverage for ourselves within sales? So your job as a sales rep is to actually create leverage for yourself in the conversation through creating pain, urgency, and a disparity from normality in the prospect's own mind. Now, you may have noticed that in that phrase there, I didn't actually reference talking about someone's goals, something that a lot of people talk about pain, talk about goals. I didn't mention that, and there's a good reason for that. I'm going to touch on that slide later on. But essentially what I mean by disparity is that what you'll notice talking to a lot of prospects, especially if you're talking to prospects with some level of maturity, so not like young 18-year-olds with no money, talking about people who are at least mid-20s onwards to 20s, 30s, 40s, is that people kind of run their lives on autopilot and not see where they've kind of ended up. And I guess to maybe go into that more, people will have a kind of vision in their head of who they were when they were younger. Maybe they were this kind of young, healthy 20-year-old, they had freedom, they had time, they had money for themselves. But over time, their reality hasn't matched with this image of themselves in their mind. Maybe they've become increasingly less healthy. They haven't ended up where they've wanted to. They've been making less money than they should have been doing. And as a result, their reality isn't matching their own self-image, essentially. So that is basically what I mean by a disparity from normality. There's a gap there between their reality and their own self-concept. So yeah, it's your job to kind of seek out and identify this disparity and this pain, because that is really what's going to get people to move on things. Because like through creating pain, you're actually creating leverage for yourself to use later on in the conversation. I guess like a good analogy for this, right, is if you go to the doctor and you've got a paper cut, you might go into the doctor and say, hey, I've got a paper cut, it's a little bit sore, what can you do for it? And they go, well, I can give you a plaster to put on that, but it's going to be £1,000. Immediately you're just going to be like, I know, I'm good, I'm out of here, I'll deal with it, I'll let it heal, and I'm going to move on. Because that's an easy situation to walk away from. There was no real pain, urgency, or anything to really act upon, right? £1,000 to you is way more valuable than just a short paper cut. But let's say you walked into the doctor, you said, I've got a paper cut, what can you do about it? And they go, yeah, I can see you've got a paper cut there. To be honest, it's bleeding pretty profusely, and it's going to keep bleeding for the next couple of hours if you don't do anything about it. And also as well, because of the way you are, it's at risk of infection right now. It's quite a deep cut. So if you leave that exposed for another couple of hours, you're probably going to get an infection in your finger. Maybe that infection might even spread to your hand. And also you're thinking to yourself as well, in that next couple of hours, if I have to sit here dealing with this, I'm going to miss a potential meeting at work with some money on the table, or I'm going to miss a dinner with your wife or whoever it is, something you've got to get to, right? And they say, well, I can give you a plaster to fix this and allow you to get on with your day, but it's going to cost £1,000. Suddenly that doesn't seem like such a big deal anymore, right? To stop the infection in your finger, and the time that you're going to potentially waste and miss making money at work or seeing your wife at dinner, £1,000 might not seem like such a big deal anymore. I guess that is the ultimate way that sales works. And as I sort of touched on earlier, you may notice in that analogy that I never referenced a goal. And that's really important, right? Because in some ways, goals are somewhat irrelevant, unfortunately. It's just another way to create disparity in someone's mind between their current situation and their idea of themselves. And there's a good reason for this, and that's because psychologically, as humans, we actually feel pain 5 times more strongly than we feel pleasure. And that is when those two things are equatable as well. So if I were to poke you with or aggravate you in some way, and I were to also provide you pleasure in some way, if those two, if that pain and that pleasure were equatable, you would be aggravated by that pain psychologically 5 times more than you would by the pleasure. And so, yeah, it's pain that really gets people to move. People will run so much faster away from a painful situation than they will move towards a pleasurable one. And there's a really good quote that I think I can't remember who I got this from. It might have been Alex Hormozy or someone like that, which is that we all fall back to the level of our habits, not the level of our goals, because everyone starts out the race, everyone starts out the 100-meter final with the same goal. We all have the same goal of finishing first. And I think that's especially relevant in life and in sales as well, is a lot of people have the same goals, right? Especially when you're talking to certain prospects. Everyone wants to make more money. Everyone wants their business to be better. Everyone wants to be more healthy. You know, you're going to hear the same things again and again and again when you talk to people about their goals. But that is not what gets them to move. People's pain is what's going to get them to move, because their pain is real to them right now, whereas their goals are just hypothetical. And their goals are very personal as well. Their pains are very personal, meaning that they're very specific to them. So, you know, they're very unique. Not everyone's going to understand them. And so that is what's going to really get them to act on something. So, yeah, essentially, if you are in sales and you are good at seeking and digging and exacerbating pain and creating pain and urgency, that is one of the most highest paid skills in the world, because that'll pay you time and time again in sales. You need to be able to do that. You need to be able to dig for pain and create pain and urgency with someone if you want them to act on something. There's a really good diagram I've seen from quite a few marketers, people I watch and follow, which is this is like the prospects pyramid of where people are kind of in their buying journey as well, right? So you have people who are ready to buy right now, just send me a payment link, I'm going to pay. People who are solution aware, they know they've got a pain and they know that they're aware of what the solution is, but they aren't too sure yet. People who are problem aware, so they're aware they've got a problem, but they aren't aware of what the solution to that problem is and when they want to do it. And then you've just got people who are just not even problem aware. They aren't even aware they've got a problem that needs fixing. And what's crazy to me and to anyone really is that this is the majority of people who are not even problem aware, 60% of people. So as a sales rep, if you can only close people who are ready to buy right now, just like send me a payment link, let's go, your close rate is going to be 3%, because that is the percentage of your market that is ready to buy right now, 3%. As you go down this list, right, if you can close people who are aware of the solution but just need help getting over the line and closing the deal on that solution, you're going to have a close rate of 17%. I guess people who are more problem aware, right? So as we go down the list, people become less aware of their problems, and people who are not even aware of their problems, 60%. So if you work in some sales job now where the role is, well, I guess the offer is fairly B2C type of offer where it is just about making money online or something of that fairly non-qualified nature, people may just click on that ad because everyone wants to make more money. They're going to click on an ad, come through, get on a sales call with you, and they just maybe get on that call expecting, just wanting to make more money, and that's what their goal is. But you are really going to have to dig deep and get them to confidently talk about a pain and why they would make a move on something like this if you want them to act that way. So yeah, essentially pain digging will pay you the highest amount in sales if you can do that well. So onto controlling leverage. So essentially in the final part of the video, I just wanted to basically take what we've just gone through and apply it to an actual sales call framework and see how we can actually control and use this leverage in context. So what you can see here is I've basically outlined the sort of timeline for what a typical sales call looks like. So obviously sort of first 35 to 40% is typically sort of discovery. We then go on to the pitch, maybe the next sort of 10% of the call, maybe 5% of the call is like your sort of temp check, your post-pitch kind of questioning. And then obviously the last maybe 20% being objection handling. So starting off with the discovery portion, I guess referencing back to what I was talking about in the first part of this video, which is that we already come into the call with a position of authority, right? We're coming to the call, the prospect's coming to the call looking for help, and they're looking for your help specifically. So in that situation, you've got maximum authority over them. And you're also in a position as well of slight positive leverage, because as we discussed earlier, you've got something that they want and they've come to it looking to get this information from you. So you're in a position of positive leverage, right? And I guess the aim of the discovery really is to build up as much positive leverage and somewhat degree negative leverage by extension as well, so that we have the ammunition to deal with the later parts of the call. That is the whole reason for discovery. To really see if we can help the person that we're speaking to, right? That's how we frame it. Is we're framing things as, you've come to us for help. How can we help you? We really want to understand your situation to see if we can help you. And then at that point, we'll propose what the solution for your problems are. So something I haven't talked about yet, and I'm going to touch on this now, is how we use frame coming into the discovery in conjunction with the leverage as well. So something that I guess the closer on within the business that I work for does really, really well, and something we kind of would encourage people to do if they're not doing this already, is that you can kind of come into the discovery with a frame of, why is it we should sort of let you in here? Almost being like a gatekeeper for the product or service that you offer, right? As I said, your product or service is in demand, you're in abundance, the prospect is in scarcity. So why should we give this to you? You know, why you're acting as a gatekeeper? Why do you want this? Why should we work with you? Why should you be a client of ours? I guess that's the frame you can really take to build up as much leverage as possible. And basically what that means is you can afford in the discovery to ask questions that are firstly open-ended, and secondly that are pushing back on the prospects in a way that gets them to sell themselves to you as to why they would be a good fit for what you're doing. And this just increases the leverage that you get even more, right? So I've written down a few examples of what I mean with that. So obviously open-ended questions is like, so what is it that kind of caught your interest in maybe what you saw in our advertising or our content that made you interested in wanting to work with us, right? That's a very open-ended question. And you can afford to do this because you're building ammunition. Or another good example may be like, this is a very sort of pushback question. You know, why even do you want to work with a professional agency rather than just trying to go away, figure this all out yourself, not even have to pay for this, right? That's another type of pushback question. Or why is it something that's a priority for you now rather than 6 months down the line? Again, kind of building urgency, getting them to sell to you why there's something they have to do now rather than you having to draw that answer out of them. So yeah, in discovery, you are in a position of authority, position of leverage, and so that gives you the ability to use questions like this to maximum advantage. So yeah, by the end of discovery, you should have built up as much leverage as possible. We then kind of move into the pitch. So the pitch really is what I call the first release of tension and kind of the balancing out of leverage, right? So the only reason the prospects has really just answered all those questions for you is because they want what you have to offer. No one actually gets on a sales call wanting to sit there and answer 20 questions about why they need your help. They just want to find out what it is you do and how much it's going to cost, as I said earlier. So they've gone through the service kind of answering your questions, giving you ammunition so that you will then tell them what you have to offer. So the pitch is that kind of first balance out of leverage, right? They've given you something, and so you're giving them something in return. You're giving them what they've come here for, which is information on your product or service. So yeah, something I guess really effective that you can do, or that you need to do during your pitch, is kind of, maybe if it's a long pitch, you need to break it down into stages and make sure that they're not getting lost in that process. Because what you don't want to do is come out the other side of that pitch and they've just had a flurry of information. Now they don't even know where they are. And so you've kind of lost all position of leverage, lost all control over leverage. So something that's really effective, I see a lot for closers do, is just break it down into stages or like pillars of how your process works. And at the end of each of those stages, just being like, how do you feel about that? Is there something you feel that would help you in this situation? Is that going to help with X problem? Or like, how do you see that, helping you in this situation? Do you have any questions on that? Just continue clarifying and making sure that they're with you every step of the way in that pitch, so that, you don't get to the end and you've just lost all authority and all leverage, basically. So, we've done the pitch. It then sort of moves through to, obviously, the temp check. Now, the temp check is super, super vital. As I just said, you've just given them a whole flurry of information on how your kind of product service works. So you always have to do the stage of the call to make sure that you know where they are and you can afford to move on and kind of progress the conversation forward. So, and you continuously also like tying down as well the answers that they're giving you in the temp check. So how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? They're going to say 8. You can say, oh, why so high? Why not like 3 or 4? Why do you feel like you're an 8? So continuously questioning their answers, tying down. They may say, oh, because I believe that this part is going to be helpful. I believe this part's going to be helpful. Okay, why though? Why do you think that part's going to help you specifically? Just continuously clarifying their thoughts, continuously pinning them down on why they've given you a certain level, sort of level of temp check at that point. And obviously, at this point, you've got sort of maximum leverage with them. You've got all the ammunition you need to now deal with their questions, their objections, and you've also built up a ton of value as well through your pitch. So you've got something that you now want. Even though they've got that information, you've built up tons of value, and now all they want to know is the price. Unfortunately, though, for you as a sales rep, the price is where you just dump all your leverage, because at this point, you've given them what the service includes, and now you're giving them the price. There is nothing more that they need to know now to make a decision. They could have effectively just turned the call off, and they could make a decision to not do this if that's what they really want to do. So that's why, again, temp checking and questioning in the sort of pitch and temp check is super key, because you want to make sure that they're on the same page as you, and they aren't in a position where they want to get off the call once you give them the price, basically. So, obviously objection handling then moves through as, we've given up all our leverage at this point, given up all our authority, and we're now having to kind of rely on utilizing that normative leverage that I talked about earlier in order to close the gap. And that's where, obviously, the discovery process is so important, because you're building up ammunition. And that's why the discovery process is so long as well. Right? The discovery in your call can be 40 to 50% of your call, and that's totally fine, because to build ammunition takes so much longer than it does to shoot it all outright. And that is applicable to, you can see that as in terms of real like gun ammunition as well. It could take months or weeks to manufacture ammunition for weapons, and then that ammunition is shot out in rounds simultaneously. And that's kind of how it works in sales as well, is once you burn that ammunition, referencing it back to them, it is going to become less effective. And so you have to be really, really careful how you're using it, and not to burn through all your ammunition super, super quickly. And also as well, this the type of questions we're answering. Obviously, we've gone from in discovery asking very open-ended and very kind of pushbacky questions, like why should we let you in this? Why do you want to work with us? What was it that you saw about us that caught your interest in working with us? Those types of questions. And we're now relying on very to the point, yes or no, black or white questions, and use that normative leverage to reference back in order to get them to give you the answer that they want. So, actually doing these goals, doing X, achieving Y, so that you can, live a better life for yourself and your future family. Is that something that you want to do like now, or you just want to go away and sit on that for another 2 or 3 months? That's a harsh yes or no question, because no one's going to want to say no to that question. same, another example as well is like the version of you that's making £50,000 a month from your business. Is that person someone who keeps putting this off, or is that person someone who actually takes action on this, makes a commitment, and actually takes steps towards achieving their goals? So yeah, these are the kind of questions you have to ask now when you've eventually given up all your leverage and authority. So yeah, that is how kind of leverage flows throughout a typical sales call. Before I end the video, I want to sort of very quickly talk about solutions on this and ways you can control this a little bit further. So one thing, I've taken this deposit to a bridge concept. I got these some two great sales reps that I watch online over at Close and Paid. I think they do great sales training and great sort of explanation on sales. And full transparency, I haven't used it myself in any sales process, and neither do I do it in the business that I work for. But I do think it is quite a good concept, and I can see theoretically how it's going to work and be very effective, which is that when you get to the end of the call, rather than trying to hard close them on a full commitment at the end of this call, like a full hard yes or no, is getting them to put down some kind of deposit so that you can go away, kind of build them like a custom game plan or custom strategy specifically for that individual or that business. And that is almost creating leverage to get them on a second call, because one thing that happens a lot at the end of sales calls is closers will book in follow-up calls with no leverage to actually get that person back. You've given them the price, given them all the information on your product or service, and they say, and they're still not certain, and this closer goes, okay, cool, let's book in a follow-up call. And I've seen this happen a number of times now, where the person puts in a follow-up call for 2 days later, and surprise, surprise, the person never shows up to the call. We never hear them from again, because they've already given them everything they need. So there is no leverage to get them back on the call, unless they're literally like, yeah, I want to do it. I just need to pay you now. Let's go. So that is kind of one way around it that I've seen that I think could be quite effective. The other solution, and what we employ in the business that I'm working for primarily, is just to never continue with the call onto the next stage unless you are certain that you are in a position of maximum leverage over the prospect. So what I mean by that is, if you complete the discovery portion of your call and you get to the end and you are not 100% certain that this person is ready to do this, or that they're going to be a good fit for what it is you offer, then just don't even move on to pitching them. Why would you try and help someone that you don't truly believe you can help, or you don't even think you can help in the slightest? So you really have to have the courage to just say in discovery, look, to be completely honest, based on what you've told me, I don't think you are going to be successful with what we offer, or you are going to be a good fit for this. For whatever reason, maybe I think you need to go away, sort out this thing in your life, or kind of watch more of our content to get more familiar with what it is that we do, before we kind of talk about what the next steps may be. So yeah, it's obviously difficult, but you just want to be in that position where you're not giving up any leverage to them. Again, if you get to the end of the pitch or the end of the temp check, and they're just uncertain on what it is, don't even drop them the price. Another way, just like, to be honest, look, I think in the position you are right now, you've got too many questions and you're kind of too uncertain on the whole process, that if I even tell you the price here, you're just going to be a whole another level of uncertain, right? You've already got this uncertainty about what it is we do and how we can help you. If I just tell you the price, you're just going to be hands off here, and you're never going to actually get the help you need to kind of solve these problems and do something like this. So yeah, just don't be afraid. As I said earlier, just be a gatekeeper for what it is you do. Don't give away your product or service without truly feeling like you can genuinely help that person. And so as a result, just don't move on in the conversation unless you are 100% certain that you've got the ammunition you need to kind of progress that conversation. But yeah, I hope that made sense. It's been a bit of a longer video than I anticipated, but hopefully you guys got a lot of value from it. Have a good day.